and welcome to episode 8 of the Stitch Goddess podcast. My name is Elizabeth. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Elissa Pack, and show notes for this episode will be found on my blog, which is thestitchgoddess.com. You can also follow the hashtag Stitch Goddess and Stitch Goddess Podcast on Instagram. So take a look at those if you are interested. If you're new to my podcast, welcome. I'm delighted to share this with you. This is a podcast all about knitting, sewing, making, all kinds of things, predominantly knitting and sewing. And if you are returning, thank you so much for coming back and being so patient. I have lots of things to share with you today. I have some finished objects, just a few works in progress, and some wonderful new additions, new acquisitions, and some upcoming events that I'm going to. So very excited. So I want to start with some finished objects, most notably what I am wearing. I am wearing an amalgamation of two dresses. If you remember from my first episode, I think I shared this dress, which is originally the Doris dress from Sew Over It by Lisa Comfort in London. And this is the Atelier Brunette Dash Lime fabric. And the original bodice had buttons going down the front and a box pleat. And there was a considerable problem that I did not anticipate with that particular bodice. I put it on and it looked back at me. So I will insert a picture, and if you don't see the problem, don't worry, it sees you. So just as the weather got nice and warm, I put that dress on and I couldn't wear it. So I thought I might be able to reuse the original bodice and make a V-neck Betty bodice and attach it to the Doris skirt. Which I ended up doing, but I had to buy new fabric, and I was very fortunate to be able to find some fabric, and it's so lovely, it's so comfortable. I did line the dress. It's lined with, it's completely lined with an Italian charmeuse satin sort of lining. It's very, very comfortable. And it just makes me feel so happy. It's very summery, and I'm really, really pleased that I was able to resurrect this dress. I moved the zip from the side to the back, managed to make the lining. I was originally going to make a Betty skirt for the lining, and I'm so glad I didn't, because this particular skirt has 7 pieces, and the Betty skirt is just 2. It's like a full circle skirt, and but in 2 pieces, and it just flows so much better, and it swishes, it's comfortable. I'm so pleased with how this turned out. So hooray for fixing a huge mistake. Some of the other things that I have been working on, I'll just go straight into all of my sewing projects. I made some placemats and napkins quite a while ago. Napkins with this adorable heart, arrows, sort of Valentine's Day fabric, and the pattern was from Purl Soho. They had a free tutorial on their website for how to make mitered square corners and how to make them look really, really nice. So I made 4 napkins, and I wanted to make some placemats. And I did make placemats with these cute owls with hearts for the eyes, and a bright pink border, and then the same napkin fabric on the back. And I thought I would give free motion quilting a try, and it's a lot harder than I realized. I thought I would just be able to, move the fabric under the sewing machine, and it would just be all these beautiful little hearts. That did not work. So this ended up being something where it's a learning project, trying to do something new, and it's going to take a lot of practice for me to get any better at this, but I'm very pleased with how this turned out, and we're going to eat on them, so if they get messed up with food, that's okay. So I'm very pleased with how these turned out. And I just recently finished a sweet little project. This is a mug rug, and it's designed, I actually have a mug with this exact fabric on it. This is a birthday present for my sister, a belated birthday present. And I used some fabric from my stash that had sort of the same pinks and aquas that are on the front, and found this adorable tutorial from Maddie Makes, and her daughter had put together this project with the fabric on the mugs, and so I'm gonna send that off. And it just so happened that as I was cutting this fabric, I happened to have enough left over to make simple coasters. And this is also sort of, to some extent, free motion quilting, but very, very geometric. This is from a project in Last Minute Patchwork and Quilted Gifts, one of the very first projects, and I just thought it would be a really good opportunity to learn something new, and so I made those two, and then I made two more in a pale green, which I keep in my bedroom because our room is green. And so it was a really fun, easy project. I just thought these turned out so well, so I'm really pleased with how that turned out. I have also been working on my awesome ocean quilt. And I finally finished the very last creature, which was the seahorse. So I have 8 adorable seahorses, and I can't wait to photograph every single one of these creatures, because I'm going to photograph it from the front and from the back, because once it's quilted you'll never see the back side. But I am really pleased with how these turned out. There were 24 pieces to make this creature, so it was quite an effort, and I really pushed through to finish it. And now I'm at the stage where it becomes a big puzzle for me and my son and my husband. We're all going to sort of sit around and assemble or just design how the quilt is going to be laid out. There is a particular way for the creatures to be placed, and so we have so many different colors. We're going to mix it all up so that not all the yellow creatures are together. And I didn't use the same colors. I used a lot of the same colors, but not necessarily the same colors every single time. And the last one I thought was so funny because there are seahorses in this fabric. So really, really pleased with how that turned out. So lots of sewing progress. That's going really well. I have also finished, quite some time ago, these socks. These are the Flying North socks by Maria Monska. And this is just a girl and her dog's yarn. A woman named Robin, who is a local dyer. And this was the Spanish Moss colorway, which I bought last year at the 2017 East Tennessee Yarn Crawl. And I was so pleased. I actually went back to the shop and showed these with the owner. I used a Fish Lips Kiss heel, really easy heel, just delightful. And so I'm really happy. I have a new pair of socks. These are finished. I think that's all for my finished objects. So I had quite a few. And as far as current works in progress, I think I had shared that I had started, let me see, where is it? This is the swatch for the Kingston Tunic by Andrea Mowry, and I finished those socks on May 18th, And I started knitting this sweater on May 18th. And so this is basically 1 month and 4 days of progress. It's huge. It is a tunic style. And oh, it just went so fast. Just everything went so well. This was a delightful yarn to work with. This is the Wool Days Scout yarn in, it's a Merino DK, 100% biodynamic West Australian single source yarn. I had 14 of these balls. I have 2.5 left, so it's going really well. I did one sleeve the other day in a few hours, and I will be finishing this sleeve today. Oops. I have one more decrease to do and then get it to the right length, and then the ribbing for the cuff. And then the last thing is to finish a cowl neckline. And I was really worried that I was going to run out of yarn, and I'm so delighted that I'm not. So this has been a hot project to work on. It is wool, so it's very, very warm, and I'm doing that in the middle of summer, but I'm determined to be ready for fall, so that I won't be behind. But I can't believe that I've almost knit a complete sweater in a month. I think the very first sweater that I made took me 3 years, and then it My second work in progress right now is a pair of socks. These are the No Mind to Worry socks, which is this pair on the cover. These are designs by Jane Burns, and they feature beading, which I thought would be a really interesting project to try. And I took inspiration from Danny at Little Bobbins Knits and cast on a pair of birthday socks, and I've been holding on to this particular ball of yarn. It's from the Wool Barn, and it is really, really soft. I think this is the Lustrous sock, and it's in the Belle Epoque colorway. This year has sort of been all about pink, and I wanted to make a pair of pink socks. I've had inspiration or the inclination to make a pair of pink socks ever since I saw a pair of pink socks on the Wool Barns Instagram feed, and so I thought, I'm going to treat myself for my birthday and cast on a pair of socks. So thank you, Danny, for the inspiration. And I am beading these. I am just doing the beads around the leg, and I'm using this very simple little crochet hook with these very pale, almost iridescent beads that match perfectly with this particular yarn. And I didn't even realize that as I'm knitting it, it's almost identical to the color that that Jane Burns used for her sample. So I have just finished the first repetition of the pattern, and I do another 24 rounds, and then I start the heel flap, and then the turn the heel, and then do the gusset, and then continue on down the foot. I won't be doing the beading all the way down the foot because I plan on wearing these with shoes, and I just thought it would be really pretty to do on its own. I think the pattern is lovely. I think the pattern would look really, really nice even without the beads. So I'm looking forward to making some more socks that are in that little booklet. So at the moment, I only have 2 knitted works in progress, which is kind of nice, and very shortly I will only have 1 because the Kingston tunic is well on its way, rushing fast towards the finish on that. So I am really, really excited. I also have some new acquisitions to share. I have a brand new project bag this is from Handmaids by Olivia, and it comes with a really lovely wristlet holder, and I think this is in a beautiful rifle paper fabric, and it's got a lovely pocket on the inside with a couple sort of grommets, and there is a little ring for holding some stitch markers, and she very graciously included 2 little stitch markers. And I also bought a little sock minder, just a little needle case for socks. I just thought this was really convenient and a really good idea for making sure your stitches don't escape off of the needles. And so I really like this. It just was, you know, another one of those Instagram Insta purchases, impulse purchase. But it was so nice to get, and some of the detailing, the gold coloring on the butterflies is actually metallic, so it's really, really pretty. It's very special. I'm really pleased with this. I also bought some new stitch markers from an Etsy shop called Ridiculously Cute, and these are just some very simple pink sort of square beads. Yeah, they're just cute. Jewelry for knitting. Yeah, I love it. So, really happy with that. And this year, I know I had said that I wasn't planning on buying yarn. Well, except for the East Tennessee Yarn Crawl. So, last year, I had no idea that there was such a thing like a yarn crawl. I'd only ever heard of a pub crawl, which probably not a good idea to combine the two. Knitting, alcohol, no, bad idea. And so I went last year and went to several shops, and, you know, I was still really new to the area, and I had a really nice time. I had hoped to go with some ladies that I have met at Atomic Fibers through the knitting group there, and it just didn't happen. And so this year, the East Tennessee Yarn Crawl just started, and what you do is you buy a passport, and then you go to each shop and have it stamped, and then you enter your passport into a drawing. And this year there are 9 shops and in the area. Some of them are very local, very easy to get to. Here's a map. And I have so far been to number 2 and number 4. I have no idea if I'll get all the way to number 3. That's in the northeast corner of Tennessee. So it could be quite a drive. But I'm just gonna go see a few shops, and they give you this enormous tote. And my first thought was, I really don't want to have to try to fill this, because my goal is to actually use up my yarn. And so, to that end, I looked through my Ravelry stash, and I thought about what each yarn shop had in the way of yarn dyers and or particular brands that I know. And I thought, well, I'll just focus in on those yarns and see if I can find enough to sort of match up with existing projects that I have in my queue and or in my favorites. And you never know what you're going to find. And so I had gone last year to the Clinch River Yarn Company and bought just a girl and her dog yarns. I bought the East Tennessee Yarn Crawl colorway last year, and I had looked up that particular dyer on Etsy, and she had a shop, and one of my favorite colors was called Sweet Sorbet. She just happened to have one skein left in the shop in the Clinch River Yarn Company, so I snatched it up. This is a Foxy Sock base with 90% superwash merino and 10% nylon, 125 grams, 480 yards. This is, again, pink and coral and cream. Just very, very lovely. No idea what I'm going to do with it yet, but perhaps a shawl. We'll see. I also picked up 2 mini skeins from Just a Girl and Her Dog Yarns. These are the also 90% superwash merino and 10% nylon. These are in the Winter Night colorway. Beautiful blue, tiny little bit of like turquoise in there, but I'm gonna hopefully use these to make toes and heels for 2 pairs of matching socks, one for my husband, one for my son, using a really dark blue yarn that's similar to this. So something fun with some fun toes and heels I think will be really, really fun. So that was what I picked up. Then over at Atomic Fibers, they were having a trunk show for Apple Studio Farms, or Apple Fiber Studio, excuse me, and I ended up picking up 3 skeins. This is called Morning Mist. It's the Macintosh base. It's a sock fingering weight, 20% superfine alpaca, 60% merino, 20% nylon, a 4-ply yarn, 437 yards, 100 gram skein. This beautiful pale gray. I just think this will make a lovely pair of socks, I think. I have a feeling next year I'm going to aim for making a lot of socks and make a box of socks. So I'm kind of stocking up on sock yarn and or fingering weight yarn. I also purchased from Apple Fiber Studio at Atomic Fibers these 2 beauties. This is called Mossy Rock, and it's got this beautiful cream color with a little bit of that pale gray, some really dark charcoal to black speckles all around this beautiful lemongrass chartreuse green. It's like green apple, Granny Smith apple, peridot. So what I'm hoping to do is use this with a skein of the, I think they have a sparkling cider base. It's all apple names for the bases. Get that in peridot, which is really this beautiful, vibrant green, and make a the Maytham shawl from the Secret Shawl Society by Helen Stewart. I have 2 colors. I need 1 more, and I'm hoping to get that green. So we shall see. But as I go through these shops for the East Tennessee Yarn Crawl this year, I'm keeping my eye out. My camera keeps cutting out on me, so I'm never really sure where I finished talking in the last cut. But I have tried to keep my inspiration for projects small, the number of projects small, therefore the corresponding purchases of yarn will be small. I don't anticipate of actually using this this year because I still have I think 7 or 8 projects, and I think I have 7 projects left in my challenge for 2018. This is going to be a big one to cross off the list. I'm really excited about that. But I really want to make sure that I don't over purchase, because when I look at my stash, it doesn't seem like I've made that much of a dent in how much I have. So I still have loads of yarn that I need to work through. And I have the herbarium sweater that I'm really interested in making, and it calls for 1,310 yards of Madeline Tosh Merino light. I just happen to have enough of that where I could make an herbarium, so I think I might end up making one in using my existing stash. It'll be a beautiful colorway too, but you never know what you're going to see, and many of these shops have a specific colorway for the East Tennessee Yarn Crawl, so we just wait and see what is inspiring. But I'm looking forward to getting my hands on some hedgehog fibers and some Three Irish Girls yarn, which will be hopefully coming up next week. I wanted to mention as well the last acquisition. For my birthday, I received a lovely gift certificate to Atomic Fibers, and I purchased a new set of needles. Now, I had been watching some of the reviews of needle sets on Very Pink Knits, and I've had the Addi Turbo Clicks for many years, and they're really, really horrible. The join is just impassable. It works, but it sounds like the yarn is ripping, and it's very frustrating. And so I was very, very fortunate to get a set of these. These are the Luca driftwood needles, and I bought the indigo set. I just thought this was so beautiful, and I'm really, really pleased that I did. I used this on my Kingston tunic, and for the first time this was really actually harder to see because the needles and the yarn were rather close in color, so if I was in any kind of darker environment I couldn't see what I was doing. But the join is extremely smooth, the needles are very soft, they're very lightweight, very comfortable. I just happen to have a pair of Knitter's Dreams on this sleeve right now, and I'll probably go back to the Luca. I'll go back to the Luca needles when I make the cowl for the rest of the sweater. But it is such a relief to have a great set of needles. I'm really, really pleased. Yeah, I think that's everything. Oh no, last time I think I had been just starting to read, or I was in the middle of book 3 of Martin Walker's series of Bruno, Chief of Police. And over the course of the last month, I read all the way through book 11. I checked out every single book that they had in the library, and I was finishing them within a day. So in the last month I have read probably about 12 books. And so on my bookshelf now I am reading The Secret Ways of Perfume by Christina Caboni. I just went to the library and I saw this, and this looked like a really interesting read, and I just read the tiny little first prologue and I'm already hooked. It sounds really, really interesting. So that is on my current bookshelf, and I'm also reading Paladin of Souls by Lois McMaster Bujold. She wrote an amazing series that I've read now 3 times over. It's one long story in 4 books called The Sharing Knife. I absolutely loved that book. She is an amazing author, and she does fantastic job with characters and their interactions and how they think and sort of the worlds that she creates. really, really interesting. And so I wanted to try another book of hers, and I read The Curse of Chalion and just finished that the other day, and I immediately started Paladin of Souls, which is the second book in the Chalion series. So I'm only a short way into that, and I would show you, but it's on my Kindle, so my Kindle's not very interesting to look at. But that's what I'm reading right now, doing lots of reading, lots of knitting, lots of sewing, and I'm enjoying the weather. The weather has turned really warm, but it's cold inside, hence I'm wearing a cardigan because we have air conditioning. But that's the latest that's been going on with me. I apologize for the delay in getting this podcast out. Hopefully my next one will not be so distant in the so distant future. But thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye.